Hey y'all, we just wanted to let you know what you're about to hear this week. This is not going to be a regular episode. This is something that we did exclusively for Patreon a few weeks ago now. We just really enjoyed the topic and we wanted you to hear it as well.
Yeah, and also if you're kind of on the fence about whether you want to support us on Patreon or not, this will just sort of give you a taste of what we do on a monthly basis for our patrons. It's generally just set up the same way our normal show is, but we focus on one topic, and it's from basically anywhere on the globe. It could be something as oddly esoteric as what we picked this time. It could be a famous mystery or murder from around the world, an international cryptid, you name it. We've done a lot of interesting topics. And if you subscribe at the $10 level, you get to pick a topic for one of these. So it's a really fun show that we really enjoy doing, and we just thought that you would really enjoy, sort of getting a taste, a sneak peek of what you could be getting if you would just subscribe to Patreon. Mm-hmm. So patreon.com/Southern Spirits Podcast if you're interested. And if you don't know if you're interested or not yet, listen to this show and you can find out.
Yeah, and we hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next week.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Chill Bombs, the makers of handmade, all-natural CBD-infused bath bombs. Check them out at chillbombs.com and use our code SPIRITS for 10% off. Enjoy the show, y'all! Hey, y'all, I'm Leah Lawrence.
And I'm her husband, Mitch Lawrence.
And you are listening to a Patreon-exclusive episode of the Southern Spirits Podcast, where I regale my husband with worldwide stories of the macabre, creepy, and strange.
And I still enjoy drinking.
So what are we actually drinking tonight, Mitchell?
We have some absolutely wonderful selections that are not from the South, and I'm so happy to say that. We have Salted Caramel Brown Ale, brewed by Horny Goat Brewing Company in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I guess they got two locations. 6.5% alcohol by volume. Let's read the can. Inspired by French-style salted caramels, this roasted brown ale is anything but typical. The malt backbone begins with subtle flavors of coffee, fruit, and roast. Wonderful flavors of slightly sweet caramel are brought to life by the addition of Himalayan sea salt to the boil in the perfect marriage of salty and sweet. This beer will challenge your palate and leave you coming back for more. Well, they pretty much said it all there. That's,
My palate isn't challenged. It's just tasty.
No, but they did. They said it all. This is incredible. How have I not heard about this before?
I don't know, but it's one of the best brown ales I've ever had.
It's one of the best beers I've ever had, period. This is incredible. It is so good. I hope every single craft beer brewer adds some kind of a variety of this. Like, do a salted caramel brown, everybody, because this is incredible. It needs to be everywhere. It's a 10 out of 10. If we can go higher, go higher. It's perfect in every single way. You will like it if you can find it. I promise.
It's so good.
Oh, it's delicious.
I mean, if you don't like sweet beers, you're not going to like it, but it's not that sweet. It's
No.
like...
It's bready.
Barely. It's a little bready, and it's just barely sweet on the back end, but it is delicious.
I agree. It is unfreaking believable. 100% recommend. Again, I'll say it as many times as it takes. Go try this beer. So good.
It's real good, and it's called Horny Goat, which made me giggle.
No, the brewer's Horny Goat.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. They make a lot of stuff. We should try some of their other stuff, see if they're also good. But for now, this is what we have. It'll have to at least wait a month. So, yeah.
Maybe we can visit them when I go on my cheesecation that I'm definitely going to go on eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. All right, our shot in the dark for this month. 68 Below Alaskan Potato Vodka. Leah's brother brought this back from a work thing he had to do in Alaska. He goes like twice every year or something.
He went twice in the last, he went for a month, and then, he came back home, and then he was here for, 3 or 4 days, and they were like, yeah, you need to go back to Alaska for, a week. And he was like, well, fuck. So he did.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, this is distilled and bottled by Fairbanks Distilling Company in Fairbanks, Alaska, and Jacob went there to get it. He was telling us that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to say your brother's name. Oh, no.
It's fine. My brother's name's Jacob.
It's 40% alcohol by volume. Let's read the bottle. 68 Below Vodka speaks of a wonderful place in interior Alaska, a place of extremes. During the winter of 1989, it hit 68 degrees below zero in low places around town. Sure, that's unofficial. Made in the historic gold rush city of Fairbanks, the Golden Heart City, far out of sight of Russia, we craft artisan distilled spirits from Alaskan crops grown under the midnight sun and welcome all visitors. Nostrovia, which I looked up is the English pronunciation of a Russian word which means cheers. So there you go. Yeah, that's what I was laughing at earlier, Leah, when it says far out of sight of Russia. It's so funny.
That is funny.
Yeah. What I have to say is this is a smooth, high price, but not exorbitant from what we understand from Jacob vodka. Definitely try it by itself before mixing it with anything so you don't dilute any of it, because I have it on ice. It is quite good by itself. Quite good. I gave it a 10 out of 10 on ice. We also didn't really have anything to mix with it, so we put it in pickle juice.
Because it's delicious.
Yeah, and it's really good. Mine is just mostly salt, I'm noticing.
Yeah, that's what pickle brine is, Mitchell.
Well, I'm just saying, that's all it is.
It's
10 out of
salt
10.
and vinegar, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and it gets a 10 out of 10 overall. And that's it for the alcohols in this Patreon exclusive episode, Leah.
Are you not going to tell them about the spicy fucking margarita mix she made me try?
Yeah. I just... it was Leah's idea. She said, we have this White's Elixirs spicy margarita mix from... If y'all listen to the main show, which of course you do, you'll know that many months back we bought a set of mixers from this White's Elixirs company in North Carolina, I think?
No, from Tennessee.
Tennessee.
They're from
There you go.
Nashville.
Yeah, and we've used all the other ones on the show, but the spicy one we have nothing to mix it with.
Because you're supposed to mix it with tequila, and I mean, no tequila is made in the South at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not a thing. And so we just didn't. And I also hate spicy drinks. I don't know why. Like,
I like them.
I love spicy food, but I don't want a spicy drink. I just don't. It's terrible. And so we were like, all right, well, this is like a clear liquor, and maybe it'll just be something different.
You said all of this. Yes. I
Fuck
did not.
me sideways.
Well, I tried it, and it's not bad, okay? The White's Elixir stuff is made with pure sugar or something like that.
Yeah, it's pure cane sugar, and it's
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yeah, and it's very... So you first take a sip of it, and it's super sweet, but then the back end of that drink is like a habanero pepper.
Yeah.
It was
a
so
fucking
spicy.
habanero pepper, like liquefied, that gets all the way down the back of your throat immediately.
So I tried it, and I actually kind of liked it, but I wasn't going to drink it the rest of the night. That's for sure.
You take a sip of it, and you're like, oh, this is tasty. And then immediately, oh, fuck, what did I do?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And I made Leah try it, and I recorded her trying it and just put it on the Facebook community chat. And it's very funny how much she hated it.
Kill me.
Well, okay, now we're done with the alcohols, Leah.
Okay,
So
thank
you may take it away.
All right, well, we're going to do our funny place name, and this
Yay.
is a funny place name from Antarctica today. Aren't you
Oh,
excited?
Yeah, I am.
All right, well, this is the name of a mountain, and it is called
Excuse me.
Nipple Peak.
Oh, yeah, I'm in for this. I'm all about this.
Nipple Peak is a peak in
Oh, is it?
the Palmer Archipelago of Antarctica, and it was discovered, or I guess first written about, by a Belgian Antarctic expedition that took place between 1897 and 1899. And the dude who named its name is Adrien de Gerlach. I don't know.
That's probably it.
I don't know what the Belgian language is, but I don't speak it, so I apologize.
I think it's Belgian.
But they, under the name origin portion of what I was reading on Wikipedia, it said the name, which suggests the shape of the feature.
Oh, hey.
So yeah, it's called that because it's literally shaped like a nipple.
Because it looks like a
It
tick
looks
old
like
bitty.
as I say, it looks like a boob. I looked up a picture of it. The mountain looks like a boob, and then there's sort of just a little on the top.
Yeah. Leah's groping herself right now
Yeah,
to try to
so-
show me, I guess.
It's a but like it's Antarctica, so it's cold as shit. So the nipple be poking out.
Yeah. Oh, I know the nipple be poking out. Don't I know?
I've had a little bit of alcohol already. I'm sorry. This might be a clusterfuck.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay, well, that was our funny place name, Nipple Peak, Antarctica.
I enjoyed it so much. All right, so what are we doing now?
Okay, so this month's episode is just going to be purely something that I'm interested in, and I hope that other people are interested in it too, but if you're not, I'm sorry. Like, we'll get back to y'all's suggestions next month, but I just need a little bit of time for me to be weird, so I hope you're okay with that.
Make it this time, right now.
Yeah, and we are going to be talking about color theory, and I know it's not macabre, I know it's not creepy, but the topic at hand today is strange, and it's very interesting, and I'm excited about it. So
I don't even know what this is.
Well, color theory is just generally, so like it's how colors are used to depict things, how they make you feel psychologically being in a room, how if you see someone wearing a certain color, it affects you, what colors go together, what colors don't go together, that kind of thing. Just how colors affect your everyday life, how cultures affect the colors that you use, etc. Just the general everything about color.
Okay.
And I mean, if you do listen to the show, which I hope you do, if you're paying us to listen to this. But anyway, you know that I have a degree in theatrical design. And the very first textbook that I had to purchase for my degree as a freshman was a book called If It's Purple, Someone's Going to Die. And that just sort of was that was my first design class, and it was an intro to color theory book. And that I still have the textbook, and I will still read it occasionally just because it's that fucking interesting.
Cool.
But it sort of, I'm a nerd about the subject, so if we get weird about it, I apologize. That is why. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of my experiences with it later on, but let's get to the actual topic at hand. So,
color theory.
In the dark.
Oh, we're going right into it.
Yes.
Okay.
So there is a color that is not mentioned by any ancient text in any culture.
What?
And it has led a lot of scholars to believe that ancient people all over the globe could not see or detect this particular color.
Like they hadn't evolved enough to have their eyes perceive it? Or their brain, whatever?
I mean, that's going to be the debate later on. Okay. But that is that this color did not exist in the lexicon of ancient peoples all over the world. What color is it?
I kind of want to just pre-guess it.
Go ahead.
You know why? Because I have troubles with blues and purples, so I think it's purple.
You're wrong, but you were close.
Oh, was it blue?
Yes.
Damn.
The answers were orange, purple, or blue.
Okay.
So
I really thought that it would have been purple.
It's not. It's blue.
Okay.
So you gonna take that shot?
Yeah, I am, and it's gonna be rough, but I'm gonna get through it for you.
Okay. Take that shot.
Okay. Yeah, just sit here and watch me. Hold on, let me do something while we're doing this. We should probably be streaming our Patreon episodes.
I would have to put on a bra. It would be terrible.
Oh, God.
Not a good shot.
It's strong as hell. And it gave me the chills and the spikies. Oh, it's so spiky.
So the initial,
oh, God.
The initial beginning of people realizing or starting to believe that ancient cultures just didn't perceive blue started in the mid-1800s. So there's a dude named William Gladstone, and eventually he becomes the Prime Minister of the UK. He apparently is an important dude in Britain, but at the time, he was just a scholar of some sort, and he was reading the Odyssey. And if y'all didn't go to high school, it's by Homer. It's the whole Odysseus
There's the Iliad
thing.
and there's the Odyssey.
Yeah, so he was reading the Odyssey.
Would you want to hear something interesting?
What's that?
My high school, it was St. James High School in Montgomery. We had a very, Greek theme. There are Greek columns and everything.
Yeah. A lot of educational facilities employ that Greek revival architecture.
Yeah. Our student newspaper was called the Odyssey, and our yearbook every year was the Iliad. Every year. Get your version of get your 2003 Iliad this year.
Our high school newspaper was called the Crimson Star, and I always thought it sounded like Russian propaganda, but whatever.
It really does.
Yeah, it sounds like Soviet era propaganda, but whatever. And maybe it was. I don't know. I never read it. I don't think anybody read it. But anyway, so he was reading the Odyssey, and he realized that, for those of you who've never read it or live under a rock, the Odyssey is the story of Odysseus. So he's gone off and he has fought in the Trojan War, and he's coming back home. And all sorts of terrible shit happens to him trying to get back home. And he's sailing the whole time, on all sorts of different modes of transportation, boat-wise. But he's basically on the ocean the whole time for like 12 years or something like that. It's ridiculous. But so he's on the sea all of the time. And this Gladstone guy realized that they never described the sea as being blue at all. They say that the sea is wine dark, or the sea is stormy, or it's silent, or it's resting from anger, or, it gives all sorts of descriptors for the sea. It gives all sorts of descriptors for the gods that control the sea and all that stuff, but never a single time do they say it was blue. They call it wine dark,
Maybe they just didn't have a name for it yet.
We're getting there. Shut up.
Okay. Sorry, everyone.
So Gladstone became very curious about this whole phenomenon. And he said, okay, well, if they don't mention blue, do they mention other colors at all? And so he counts all the color references that he finds in the Odyssey. So black, the color black is mentioned 200 times. The color white is referenced over 100 times. Blue did not appear a single time. Not talking about the sky, not talking about water, not talking about anybody's clothes, just no blue whatsoever. And so he was like, okay, well, maybe Homer just didn't like blue. So let's look at other Greek texts. So he started examining other ancient Greek texts. And lo and behold, the same kind of pattern continues. There is no blue. As far as ancient Greece is concerned, blue ain't a thing.
Okay.
There is no blue. And so he's just like, that's fucking weird. And so his theory sort of goes around in scholastic circles, and people sort of talk about it and kind of catch on to the idea. And this idea gets to a scholar in Germany, and his name is Lazarus Geiger, which is a fabulous name.
It is.
And he was a Jewish philologist, which I love.
What is that?
word. A philologist is someone who studies languages, how languages affect culture.
I thought it had to do with
how
falafels.
No, but that would be delicious.
Oh.
But no, it's someone that studies language, that kind of thing. And so he decided that he was very interested in this thought, but maybe it's just a weird quirk of ancient Greek writers. Maybe they just didn't talk about colors as in-depth as other cultures might have. So he's like, okay, I'm a philologist. I read all of these other languages. I'm going to take it upon myself to analyze a lot of ancient texts.
It does sound like he made it up. Okay, I'm a philologist.
He was a noted philologist of the time. I don't know any philologists of our time, but I'm sure there are some.
I know of no noted philologists.
Philologists. Anyway.
Oh, you're such a bad person.
Yeah, I know. So he starts analyzing ancient texts, and the first thing that he gets into are some ancient Icelandic sagas. So you know how they do the long epic poems and stuff like that, the Viking kind of stuff. And he realized, they don't talk about blue. He does the Quran, he does the Vedas, which are Hindu texts. He goes through all sorts of ancient Chinese folklore and writing. He goes through Arabic texts, Sanskrit texts. He goes through the Hebrew version of the Bible. There's no blue anywhere. None of these cultures have blue. And he's like, it's really fucking weird, right?
Yeah, that is weird. I've never heard this before.
Yeah. And so this is a quote from Geiger about this phenomenon. It says, "These hymns of more than 10,000 lines are brimming with descriptions of the heavens. Scarcely any subject is evoked more frequently. The sun and reddening dawn's play of color, day and night, cloud and lightning, the air and ether, all these things unfolded before us again and again. But there is one thing no one would ever learn from these ancient songs, and that is that the sky is blue." Yeah. So
Hilarious.
yeah. How's that hilarious?
I don't know. I've never heard this before. And just hearing that blue basically wasn't a thing, in the ancient world it's
Weird, right?
Very weird. Mm-hmm. So I say hilarious when I do.
Yeah, and I hate when you
react to
say
things.
that.
Hilarious.
It's not hilarious, though. That is, you're using that word incorrectly, and it infuriates me
Leah,
on a regular basis.
It is literally hilarious.
It's not, though. I hate it. I don't care how you use the word literally, but motherfucker, you say hilarious for things that just... No, it's not.
It's literally hilarious.
It's not, though. Ugh, I hate it. Anyway, sorry, y'all. Welcome to Mitch and Leah's marriage counseling.
Yeah, I got some shit I want to bring up.
So yeah, that's just a really great sort of summation of this whole thing. Like, just blue is not something that they described back then. It just wasn't. And there is like a word in the ancient Hebrew text that used to be translated as blue, but in fact the Hebrew word is, I can't pronounce it, te'eleh. I don't know.
Hilarious.
It's not funny. Stop it. But anyway, it's not actually blue. It's a particular type of dye that was made from seashells on the beaches of Israel and Lebanon, and it's actually purple. It's not blue, and so it was a mistranslation that might have led people that weren't reading the actual source text to not believe that,
Okay.
But any time in the Bible that it's translated as blue in modern history, it's a purple, in fact, not a blue. And so they even dug further back. Like, all of those texts are ancient, but so they go even further. They go into, like, Canaanite stories. Like, there's a set of ancient tablets called the Ugarit, I think is how you say it. And it's a lot of poems and epics about, like, the Canaanite gods. So, Baal and, well, that's the only Canaanite god that I know, really. I'm sorry, y'all. I know there's a bunch of them. But there's a whole story on there about their god of the sea, who I guess his name is Yam. But they...
Yams?
Yeah. No, just Yam.
I love
Y-A-M.
yams.
But they talk about him, who's the god of the sea. They talk about Baal, who's like a thunder and rainstorm god kind of thing. They talk about fighting in the sea, but they never talk about the color. They never talk about the color of the sky. They never talk about the color of any of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so he's like, yeah, that's weird. And then they go even farther back into ancient Indian epics, the Mahabharata, all that stuff. They mention the ocean tons of times. They mention the sky tons of times. Never the color blue. And so this leads people to think that there's a variety of different things that people have explained over the years trying to describe why this phenomenon is. So initially, they start looking at, so that same linguist that I was telling you about, the philologist, Lazarus Geiger, he decides to figure out when, in fact, places start, or when colors start being more and more used in text in different languages as they develop, right? So initially, almost every language has the color black and they have the color white, and then the next color that they add is red.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always. And then the more recent manuscripts get, the more colors they introduce into it. So like the Bible and the Quran are a little bit more recent. So they have green, they have yellow, they have red, they have black, they have white. Generally, they have a purple of some sort. And it's not just, oh, we have black, white, red. Those are the only words for it. They've got black, white, and they've got a ton of different shades of red. They've got pink, they've got maroon, they've got light red, dark red, deep red.
Magenta.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a bunch of different kinds of red, and they've got a bunch of different kinds of greens. They've got olive green and grass green and hunter green and all the different greens. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just we have 4 colors. It's I see this whole thing as a separate subset of colors. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But even further back, the most recent color that ever gets added is blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so he even went back and studied the actual etymology of the different words in the different European languages about where the word for blue in each of these languages come from. And all of the words are derived, for blue is derived from the word for black or the word for green. And so it's just a weird kind of thing that people are like, okay, so did they start seeing more color, or did they start describing more color?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, how is that? Because the theory of evolution was at this time point just starting to get hold of people, you know what I mean? They think, oh, maybe this is an evolutionary process of like physical human anatomy. Maybe this is like, as we get more and more developed, you know, brain wise and that kind of thing, maybe we're just seeing more colors physically. So there was a Swedish dude whose name was Hugo Magnus, which is also a great name.
So many people have great names in the story.
Yeah, and he's actually an anatomist and an ophthalmologist.
Again, made up words.
An ophthalmologist?
I've heard that one. I haven't heard the anatomologist, though.
I didn't say anatomologist. I said anatomist and ophthalmologist. Anyway, this dude discovers that color blindness is a thing, because that was never something that was ever really described anywhere else previous to that in medical literature.
Okay.
And he discovers basically color blindness and the function of color blindness, of how, you know, the differences in your retinas and all of that stuff make you colorblind or not, etc. And so he's like, yeah, I definitely think that it's some kind of physical thing, that it's, you know, each generation passes on more ability to see light. And that's incorrect, because just the way evolution functions and that kind of thing, you can't pass on gained abilities through a lifetime. It's a genetic...
Yeah, it takes a long time.
It's not something that they could... basically, it's interesting theory. Thanks, dude. Good for you on finding the colorblindness thing, but you're wrong. Sorry. So, excuse me. They try to start figuring out what the actual function of this is. So they start thinking, okay, we have all of these colors in our culture. These other developed cultures also have names for all of these different colors. Does there exist maybe and I hate to use this word, but primitive? Primitive sounds condescending, but that's the word that anthropologists in the 1890s used. It's just, I don't like it, but
what's
that's
it in regards to? Because the word primitive is not condescending.
Well, when you say primitive cultures, it generally is... sort of a negative connotation, as in they're not as smart as us, they're not as developed as us, they're not.
Well, if you're talking about ancient cultures, absolutely.
But we're not talking about ancient cultures.
Okay.
We're talking about modern to them cultures.
Okay. Okay.
So it would be like me going to an Amazonian tribe and calling them primitive right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's just rude.
I still don't understand the negative connotation, though, because it is. I mean, it literally is. They don't have the same knowledge that we do.
But they have different knowledge and knowledge that we have absolutely no clue about. And that's where the condescension comes in. And I don't like using the word.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, you're wrong. And anyway, it's not a word I like to use.
Whatever.
It's not a word that I like to use at all. But that is the word that they use in that time period talking about this thing. So they go to try to find a less developed culture. And they end up going, so the guy in question is W.H.R. Rivers, and he's a psychiatrist, and he decides that he's going to find a native population, and they go to a set of islands that I had never heard of before this research, but it's the Torres Straits Islands, and they're located between New Guinea and Australia. And so they start doing anthropological research with the people that live on those islands. And they were investigating how those islanders perceive different colors, how they describe different things, just, you know, culturally, how do you describe the hue of something? You know what I mean? Or, you know, how did you describe certain aspects of nature and that kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And they realize that this particular population describes the sky as black, like in the middle of the day. They describe it as the color black. They like a child described the color of the sky like being dark as dirty water. And they were like, that's really strange. That's different. And this sort of led them to believe that it's not that the populations are colorblind. They see all the same colors that we see, but they see it as a spectrum of color instead of an arbitrarily marked off section of color.
Like a rainbow.
Yeah.
Like they see it actually blended together and all of the things together.
They perceive color as being value based as opposed to hue based. So if you've ever taken an art class, and believe me, I took several, you'll have to do a color wheel at some point. It's going to be terrible. I apologize, but you're going to have to do it. So
goodness, you've got the coughs.
Yeah, I do. So, there's hues and there's shades, and hues are color, like pure pigment that you've added white to. Shades are pure pigment that you've added black to. And the value of something is how far away from the pure pigment you are. So, something farther away has a different value as something, you know, it's how light or dark something is. And like I said, they're seeing it as, you know, this is white because it is a lighter shade of this. Like all the hues are together, all the shades are together. Is it white or black? You know,
right? The way that color actually, performs or is.
Yeah, because
it is a spectrum.
You know? And I don't know if you know anything about colors or where they came from or anything like that.
I do not.
But. And I'm just spitballing here because this is stuff that I learned 10 years ago in college. So apologize if this isn't 100% accurate. But the person that is responsible for our modern day color wheel and color theory is Isaac Newton.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So all of this stuff and what you and I perceive as the basic colors all come from Isaac Newton. Mm-hmm. So he starts playing around with prisms and he discovers light refraction. And he realizes that white light is composed of a spectrum of color and not just it's white or it's red. And anyway, and he comes up with, he has a spectrum basically. And he's the first one to describe color as a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so he uses these prisms. And he gets his friends together and basically he's like, we're going to pick 7 colors and we're going to draw lines between these spectrums and we're going to pick these 7 colors. Why 7, you might ask? 7?
I don't ask.
Because Pythagoras, like the Greek mathematician, was really into the number 7. It's a mystical kind of good juju number in a lot of different religions, and so he just arbitrarily picked the number 7.
It's the most magical number, isn't it? 7?
7 or 9, depending on what belief system you go for. But
kind of
but,
like how there's arbitrarily colors like divided. It's just arbitrarily the most magic number.
Well, I mean, like, so you've got 7 days in a week, and
yeah, but that's
that
completely
kind of
arbitrary. That was made up as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying,
So,
like, culturally, it was a significant number.
Yeah, I get it.
But there is no reason that there are only like 7. Roy G. Biv is not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's.
Yeah, no. It's taught. It's a very simple thing, so it's taught to children, so they can kind of start to understand color.
But like I said, it is an arbitrary designation that they separated them into these sections.
Dare I call it a primitive way of doing it?
I mean, I guess. I don't know. It's very mathematical the way he lays it out. So he's the first one to actually lay it out in a color wheel as well. And he describes the mathematical, like, frequencies and how light refracts. And I don't know. A lot of that math is way above my head. But he's the first one that put all of that stuff together in a color wheel, a color spectrum. And he's the reason European-based languages have those colors and have words for those colors, because
I didn't know that.
He's the one who broke it down into that simplified system, right? And so I don't know where I was going with that, but that was just a weird side lesson that I thought everybody needed to know. But yeah, and so not only did the scientists that were doing research with those islanders come up with that thought, they have also more recently done investigations with other native populations in other parts of the world more recently. So I think it was 2006. The BBC did a documentary, and these anthropologists went into Namibia, and there's a tribe that's a little isolated there in Namibia, and they're called the Himba, and their language does not have a word for blue, and it doesn't distinguish between blue and green. Blue and green are the same color for them.
Okay.
They're just shades of the same color. They have one color for that.
But they do have one thing. They don't have shades. Like, like you were talking about, some have hunter green and light green and lime green and stuff, and they just have green.
Well, they've got like a bunch of different words for green.
Okay.
But
so maybe blue is a shade of green, is what I'm saying.
Basically, but it differentiates because they did an experiment where they took 11 squares that were green and one square that was blue, and they put them in a circle, and they asked, and they changed which square was blue every time, and they said they had them do a test, which one is different, and it took them a long time to figure out which one was different, if they could figure it out, and their mistakes in finding which one was different was way higher than anybody that was raised in a culture where green and blue are separate things.
Okay.
They could not detect the difference, and it wasn't different shades of blue. It was like bright blue, bright blue, bright blue, bright green, bright blue, bright blue. I mean, I
thought it was all
the same.
green and one was blue. So they were all blue and one was green?
No, it was all green and one was blue. I was back, but I was messed up. But
okay.
That's what I'm saying. It was a very, to you and me, this is an easy, oh, that one's blue. That one's blue. That one's blue. But to them, it was just basically a barely recognizable shade of the same color. You know what I mean?
Like I said, I used to have really big troubles distinguishing between dark blue and purple. For some reason, I don't anymore. But I used to, really badly. And I don't know if bad is the right word. I mean, it's just I could not distinguish them.
Well, and
people would tell me, they're very different.
Yeah,
People
you still honestly, you still call things certain colors that I would not identify as that same color.
Well, when I say that something's mauve, I'm really just fucking with you. Because I found out what mauve was like a year ago.
Yeah, I know. But I'm talking about you have called things a blue or purple or green and yellow. You also have, or not green and yellow, excuse me. Orange and yellow you have a hard time distinguishing. And
I didn't know that.
orange and red you
Yeah.
mix up a lot.
Well, maybe this is all just subjective.
It is, and that's what we're getting at
Oh,
here.
okay.
Because there is, I mean, what I call red and what you call red are,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
And there really there
it's a
could
language thing.
I've heard this kind of thing before. They could just be anything. Like you
How
know
do
that,
I know that my red and your red are the same red?
right. You know that YouTuber I watch a lot? Y'all, if y'all don't know who he is, his name is Carl Sagan42. He does a shitload of Mario Maker videos. He has something that he's talked about on his videos. I don't know the name of it, but he cannot imagine the color red. It is an actual medical thing that that has a name. He can't imagine the color red. I think he can see it, but in his head, he cannot see it. Like if he closes his eyes, he doesn't know what red looks like.
Yeah, and there are actually people that can't picture things in their mind. They
Mm-hmm.
there is no inner, because I've talked to a couple of people that have that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a medical thing. Some
It's
people
really
have
weird.
that problem. But yeah, so basically it has led, this whole research has led them to believe that, you know, it's language itself that's allowing us to identify these colors.
Yeah.
So if you have a word for a color, you are way more apt and likely to identify it, you know what I mean, as a specific color instead of a subset of something else.
Yeah. See, I love this kind of stuff. I love
it's
psychology
so
type of
interesting.
stuff.
So basically, the whole point of this research is they believe that ancient people saw all these colors, but not having a word for it means that they're all just, you know, that's light and this is a different kind of light. This
Yeah.
is dark and this is a different kind of dark. And then as different pigments, like artificial pigments and natural pigments, started being derived from things, the different areas where they made these pigments started knowing and using words for them. You know what I mean? So indigo, the plant indigo, makes a dye that is indigo colored.
Right.
And so all of a sudden they have the word indigo, they have the color indigo, and people can tell the difference between indigo and blue and purple.
That
And
has to be
me,
where orange came from. It just has to.
the fruit orange was before the
Yeah,
color
that's what I'm
orange.
saying. It has to. It has to have been that way.
And so, like, in places where, basically, when you're looking at it evolutionarily, there are certain things that are really important to allow you to survive, right? So, knowing when it's light outside, knowing when it's dark outside. Great reason for you to have black and white. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, every culture initially starts out with black and white.
Yeah.
And then without fail, the next color that you're getting is red. And you're getting red because red is the color of blood. Red is the color of certain poisonous things. You know, red is an important color in all sorts of things. It's
Talking about night and day as well is also like sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, that's involved a lot.
And so that's really important. And so those are the three colors that are almost always in early languages. And then you're going to add greens and yellows, because green is obviously, you know, you're finding plants, food to eat.
Right.
You're harvesting things. Green is an important color. Yellow is an important color, so you can tell if something's ripe, if something's wilted, that kind of thing. And that, you know, allows you to distinguish between, you know, if something's a good thing to eat or not. And so basically the less useful, survivorily, I don't know,
Yeah, that's it.
that's not the right word, but you know, the more useful it is to survival, the more recent the earlier in a language's history it is developed, right?
Yeah.
And basically, blue's just not really necessary because it's very rare in nature, other than like the water, which once again is just seen as sort of a dark or light kind of color, and the sky, which, you know, I mean, it's always the same. It's always there. So it's not really, it's really more if it gets super dark, all of a sudden, something's going down. It's not the shade of blue that's going to tip you off,
Right.
So a lot of places that develop the word for blue are places where blue dyes are made. And like a lot of, I guess the earliest pigment that was found for the color blue, so there's a mineral called lapis lazuli, and that is one of the very first sources for the color blue, and it was very expensive to mine, very, very difficult, and it was very, 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 very expensive. And so cultures that had access to that kind of thing developed a color for blue. And like a lot of other cultures that develop specific words for other colors are based off of physical things that you would use to make a dye or a paint. You know what I mean? Like, so like the word umber is from
like burnt umber.
Yeah,
like
the color burnt umber. It's actually from the Italian area of Umbria, and it's basically they treat a certain type of soil that comes from that region in a way that makes pigment, and that is the color umber. The same thing with sienna. So there's a sort of a reddish brown color called sienna.
Yeah.
And it's the same way.
Can I tell you something interesting about this?
What's that?
You know the color Purple Mountain Majesty?
Yes.
Have I told you this before?
You have.
I have a friend that I grew up with who named that color. Like won either second or third place nationally in a Crayola color naming contest.
Yeah, I remember that contest when it happened.
He named the color Purple Mountain Majesty. I have seen his certificate. He got, quote unquote, a lifetime supply of Crayola crayons when he did it. He was in like first grade or something.
Yeah, a lot of schools did that. My school did that. We had to pick
It was in the early to mid 90s, yeah. Yeah.
I did not win.
But he named, what, did you submit one?
Yeah.
What was your submission?
I have no idea.
He did though. He named the color Purple Mountain Majesty.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Shout out to Tim.
Hey, Tim.
No,
great color.
He doesn't. I haven't spoken to him in years.
Still, it's a great color. But yeah, so that's just, I don't know. I just find it so interesting that language creates perception.
Yeah.
That whole thing just fascinates me, and I don't know why, but it does.
And me too. I'm all about this, and if we could go, like, if you want to make this a real long one and we can just talk about this for a while, I'm all for it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. It just makes me wonder, what shades of something am I not perceiving because I don't know its name?
Well,
you know what
we
I mean?
talked about this in a philosophy class in college. One of my philosophy classes. It was we were talking about perception and the ability to create. And one of the things we talked about, I don't remember the philosopher we were discussing, but it was, if you see a shade or if somebody lays out in front of you, 10 to 20 shades of blue, and they have one piece missing, do you think your brain could fill in that missing piece? And everybody in the class was like, of course, yes. And I'm like, absolutely not. Why would I know what it is? I understand that there will be a range of things in there, most likely, but I'm not going to pick whatever it is that you think I'm supposed to pick. And the professor was saying that the philosopher was saying that you have to perceive something first to know what there is, whatever it was, the lesson we were talking about. So, I just bringing it round full circle, we were talking about colors in that philosophy class and the ability to know what's there without having first seen it before.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And yeah, so let me get my next shot in the dark, and then we'll talk about some more modern things, because I'm really into this, and if we go too long, I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm going to talk about it.
It's only been like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
we're good.
so we're
Here,
good.
let me do this. Okay.
All right. Which ancient culture is the first to have a recorded word for the color blue?
Oh, God.
Is it A, the Egyptians, B, the Sumerians, or C, the Babylonians?
Oh, man. Oh. See, I don't know too much about the Sumerians. I'm going to say Babylonians.
You're incorrect.
Babylonians.
It's
Fuck.
the Egyptians.
Fucking A.
Do you want me to take your shot? Because I'll take it.
You're going to hate it, so I'll do it.
I'll take it.
No.
Give it.
You're not going to want to talk about this the rest of the night.
Fucking give it.
I mean, if you want it, you can have it. But it's a really terrible idea.
I'm taking it.
Okay, go ahead. Go right ahead. And enjoy how miserable it is. It's strong as fuck. I'll take it.
It smells like rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But I'll take one too. So we'll be on the same page. Actually, no, I'm not going to take a shot, but I will drink my on ice quickly. How about that? How do you feel? Does your throat feel like it's ignited? I hate that sound effect. It does nothing. Yeah, isn't that awful?
It's not that bad, but I just got the full body.
Oh, yeah, you'll get the shivers.
You're right, though. We had talked about it earlier, the difference between grain vodka and potato vodka.
It's so easy,
different.
isn't it? Once you start... See, y'all, we're going to talk about this for a second. If y'all know anything about me, you know that I wasn't a fan of vodka. I've become more of a fan of vodka doing this show. I took one sip of this and I go, this is so much different than any other vodka. Because it is. It doesn't taste anything like Tito's. It's like they're completely different things, but they're both vodka. So it's like they're... like one of them's whiskey and one of them's vodka almost. Like that level of difference for me now.
Yeah, there's a lot of difference, and I didn't know that because I think that's probably the first potato vodka I've ever had.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Most of the other ones I've had are distilled from grains of some sort, so it's a very different taste, but it's good. I like
love it. I love this vodka. Shooting it is
really
not a good idea. This is a sipping vodka.
Yeah, that's a high quality sip it, don't shoot it kind of situation, but it's good. But anyway, yeah, the first ancient culture with a recorded word for the color blue is the ancient Egyptians. And once again, the reason they have that color is because they were the first culture to produce blue dye. And it's called Egyptian blue, and tons of their artwork and beads and stuff like that from ancient Egypt, there's a lot of blue because it was very famous. You know, it was their thing. And it ranges from that first starts showing up in the Old Kingdom era, and it's just a beautiful blue color, and it's the same kind of blue that's found in a lot of Greco-Roman stuff as well. It's a pigment that, because a lot of the times you think of, which is why this whole thing blew my mind, because a lot of Greek art is blue and white. You know what I mean? That's their flag. Like it's a whole... When I think of Greece, I think of like white background marble kind of stuff with like a blue Greek key around it. You know what I mean? Like, I think of a lot of that kind of stuff. And it just sort of blew my mind that they didn't have a word for blue until way more recently than you would think. And yeah, so anyway, but that blue became known as sort of the color of the Nile River. They decided that was the color of the sky. Blue was very expensive. Once again, it was a lapis lazuli kind of thing that they had to grind it down and make it. And so it's, that was the first place that it became not a synthetic dye, but a dye that they combined ingredients to make, and not just a, if you boil a beet, it turns purple kind of situation, like there was a method to making this kind of thing. But anyway, I don't know. that was most of it. But I just want to keep talking about it because I love it. But I just wanted to give you some modern instances of this whole blue-green combination situation. So
I would love to have that.
Yeah, so in Japan, like modern Japanese has a color for green, right? It is Midori, which is that melon liqueur that's bright green.
Yeah. That's the name for green?
The name for green is Midori.
Wow.
But the word Midori is much, 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 much more recent than anything else. Like it's a newcomer on the Japanese language market. The word, it's spelled AO,
in like Americanized, so AO, I guess. But I've got a picture of the kanji, but I can't.
Ow.
I don't know. So anyway, it's the color of what people in English would call blue and green. So their color AO or whatever, however you say it. I'm sorry, I do not speak Japanese, but basically it's the same thing. It's AO is is the spectrum of blue to green. So like
so it's all one.
It's all one color.
Okay.
Now they, like I said, they started like, and I'm saying Midori just started being used more recently, as recently as the Heian period, and it really didn't start becoming like standard as like green, and for a long time it was just the color Midori was thought of as just a shade of AO, but they start distinguishing green and blue just like a lot after World War II, like when it became more
really that
industrialized that recently.
Okay.
So like it's weird because they use that color to mean some things and not other things. So like a traffic light turns AO, which is basically blue, blue or green, whatever. But Midori, the green, is something that you would call
green.
Like if it was a green car or a green nail polish or whatever, you would probably call it Midori. So they're
the same color, but they have different contexts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of how quickly, because like I said, the Western occupation of Japan after World War II really sort of, brought more of a Western idea of color theory, to them. And so like some vegetables are still described as the word AO, which is, like I said, a spectrum from blue to green. But other things are just, the word Midori, and it's a whole different, it's weird, but it's really cool. And there's,
it's super freaking interesting.
I think it was a Live Science article that I was reading about this phenomenon. It was really neat, but they had this whole thing where they took, Japanese speakers, like native people from Japan speaking Japanese, and they have a bunch of colors and they flash it these colors and they say, what would you call this? And they break this chart down as to what they call these colors. And there's this one specific shade of like a light blue that has a very specific name in that culture, and like everybody called it that culture, and they're like, what? Like that's another color, I guess. And it was so weird. But
it's like you hear this all the time with those Asian languages. I think it's almost primarily Japanese, but I think I've heard about it in Chinese too. They have kind of like how we have homonyms where the same word means different things. Yeah. They have multiple words that mean the same thing, but in context are completely different.
Yeah.
So I think this is what we're talking about here.
Well, yeah, and it depends on how important a certain type of thing is in your culture. So, like, if you live in a place where it snows all the time, you're going to have a bunch of different type of snow words, like slushy snow or lightly falling snow or heavily falling snow, or, they're each going to have a different word because snow's really important to your culture. Yeah. Whereas it snows maybe once a year here, and we just got the snow.
It either sticks or it melts.
It sticks or it don't, So, like, it's, I personally know lots of different color names because I had to do Pantone matching for a job that I had one time. You know what I mean? Like, I know lots of really weird color names and shades and that kind of stuff because I studied the history of garment making and stuff like that in college. I know I can distinguish a lot more colors than a lot of people can because I do have names for them. You know what I mean? Like, whereas I could distinguish maybe peach and salmon and all of these different, like,
and mauve.
Yes, I know what mauve is. But you know what I mean, like, it's
fucking every time we go anywhere I'll say something like, oh, look at that teal shirt, and Leo will go, that's more of a seafoam, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. You fucking cunt. What is your problem?
My problem is my education was really expensive and I'm trying to use it in everyday life. Okay. But yeah, so
I think that I would be a lot better at picking out and distinguishing colors than you would, because
absolutely.
I have a lot more words for colors than you do.
Absolutely. I know the same words, but I don't put them together.
Yeah.
You know, like I stick to that 7 color type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see a blue or a shade of blue like a teal, and you see every fucking thing in between blue and teal,
Yeah.
and know what all of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are words for them, but I have blue and teal.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And then in Russian, apparently there are 2 different types of blue. So they've got light blue and dark blue, and they each have a different word, and they're each a separate color. Like you would think of green and red as 2 completely separate colors. They have 2 different words for 2 different shades of blue. Like to me, I would call both of them blue, but one of them's a light blue and one of them is dark blue. And to Russian speakers, they're 2 completely separate colors.
Okay. That's interesting.
Which is really strange to me.
Are you saying they're 2 separate words, or they are actually 2 separate entities?
They're,
you know what I mean?
They're separate words, but it is comparatively, it would be like me saying this is green, this is red.
Okay.
They're 2 colors. I would call both of them blue. I would
Or
call
shades
one of
of
them a
blue.
light blue and one of them a dark
Yeah.
blue. But to a Russian speaker, to someone who is brought up in that culture, one of them is
Maybe they
this
don't have
color
shades
blue and
like
one of
that,
them is
you know.
this color.
Yeah.
You know, 2 separate colors. I don't know. I always found it really interesting. And then also what I always found fascinating, because once again, I studied costume design, and part of that was doing an art history program. So my minor's in art history, and the different colors and what they mean in other cultures. So I told you about when we first started the book, If It's Purple, Someone's Going to Die.
Right.
That whole book is about Western color theory and what in the general American color palette says about certain things. And so they go through a bunch of different movies, and they talk about the symbolism of different colors in Western society.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times in movies, literally as the title says, if someone is wearing purple or if there's a purple cast to the lighting, it means that they are killing someone or they are going to die.
Yeah.
And that's a really standard color. And they go through, and you're like, oh no, that's bullshit. But no, like they have screen cap pictures of all of these different movies, and they bring this up, and it's like, that's a thing. You know what I mean? And that's sort of embedded in our Western cultural identity of, what does this color mean? So the first sort of exercises that we went through when we started doing design and color theory in that first class was our professor. Her name's Emily Gill. She's one of the coolest, best professors I've ever had in my life. Highly recommended if anybody's in the...
Seek her out.
If you need a costume professor, she's fucking badass. But yeah, her first lessons were, she took a bunch of words. So she took like the word lugubrious, and she took the word like stunted or sadness, or just all of these different words.
Falafelologist.
And she gave you a stack of magazines, and you'd pick out images that matched for you that word. Nothing that said a word, nothing that had, but like advertising pages from magazines.
Kind of like word association.
Exactly.
Kind of. Yeah.
But you would find these images, and then you would have to describe, why does this match for you? And a lot of the times it would be color or line or shape and stuff, and we would have to describe what that kind of stuff means to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always the most fucking interesting thing to me, because a lot of us associated the same colors with the same stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, to me it's just really interesting when it comes to everybody perceiving, once again, if you were born and raised in the same general culture, we have similar stuff. But when I was a senior and I was doing design projects, and I was like the only senior that was doing that degree, so I had like a one-on-one class with that professor, and we were doing another design class, and she was doing, she was taking me through different cultures' plays, so ancient plays from different different areas of the world. So we did Lysistrata, which was a Greek play, and learning about different cultural things from there. And obviously she let me do whatever type of designs I wanted or whatever, and then we would sort of compare it through historical versions of that show. And it was really interesting, but the one that stands out in my mind the most was a play called Shakuntala, and it is it's an ancient Indian play. And I read the English translation of it, and I did all of the designs for it, and that's actually one of my favorite things that I've ever designed. It was really beautiful. I got to use lots of fun techniques, and and she was like, create a Western version of this. You don't need to, because in Indian theater, like, saris are very specific, the way they're wrapped, very
Right.
like everything means something in Indian culture, and like she wasn't after that, she was after, what does this mean to you, and that kind of stuff. And my interpretation of it was so much different than what you would see if it was an Indian person that designed it.
Yeah, because you're a fucking weirdo, though.
Well, yeah, that is a problem. I am a fucking weirdo, and most of the stuff that I design has nothing to do with what anybody else comes up with. Like,
Right.
my design for not Shakuntala, but
I thought you were about to say Shakira.
no, my designs for Lysistrata was like an old timey 1920s circus, like. It was really cool design, by the way.
Oh, I'll bet.
But they were circus costumes instead of like togas. But anyway, but when we did Lysistrata, like I said, the colors that I used for certain characters were completely opposite of what a native Indian designer would have used, because what certain colors mean to me are not at all what they mean in other cultures. So like, someone might wear white on their wedding day over here because that's a symbol of purity and sweetness and, all that stuff, Victorian kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But I think that's like I think in Chinese culture, like, white's a death color, so that you would not wear that to your wedding. It would be like a
Right.
red, because red is a lucky and auspicious color, that kind of thing. Which, I mean, nowadays, Western culture and weddings and stuff has really permeated, like, worldwide culture, so a white wedding dress is pretty popular everywhere now. But, traditionally speaking, like, the color yellow could be really bright and sunny for us, but it could mean, fucking famine for everybody else, it really, I'm obsessed with this topic.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I am.
Well,
I'm sorry.
When you were talking about purple and being in shows and stuff, people have done these color theory things with the show Breaking Bad, and you need to watch it, because there is a one character, Marie, in it that's the main character, Walter White's sister-in-law, and she never dies, spoiler alert, but she wears purple every single time she's on camera, almost. She's always in purple, and people have gone through and, because Vince Gilligan does these sort of things, he's the same guy that wrote the X-Files and all that, but people have gone through and mapped out every single outfit that Walter White wore, that Jesse Pinkman wore, and it's supposed to show evolution of the characters with their colors and stuff, and people have mapped them out, and I've seen them online a few different times.
Yeah, and that's
it's
really
amazing.
That's really a mark of a good designer, and it might even be subconscious for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is for me, unless I'm being really specific with something that has like lots of really strong overtones of like, this is what this character is. You know what I mean? But like, I like to add hints of colors when I design stuff, and just really. I mean, that's just, for me, that's a mark of a good designer, someone that brings through lines for characters just in colors, because it's a language that, as long as you're all from the same culture, it generally is pretty cohesive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, it might be completely different from someone that was from a different culture, but generally speaking, my use of red in certain things is going to be very specific, and you're going to pick up on that. It's a visual cue that you can use to sort of connect to, like, it's
it's an automatic archetypal kind of system that, you know, if the ingenue of the play is wearing light pink, you know that's her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to wonder if she's the romantic interest. You don't have to, you know, she's in a light pink, we got it. You know what I mean? Like, it can be a really easy visual cue to bring an audience into something. And I don't know, that whole idea, I love it. And you can look at art history the same way, which once again, did a lot of art history to the point where it hurts. But, you know, just analyzing colors and paintings and stuff like that. And then bringing it into modern day. So, like, you've got all of these old paintings and stuff like that, very specific colors because of what paint could only be made out of, right?
Right.
So, like, there's a certain shade of brown that is used in a lot of paintings that is literally made out of mummies. It's called mummy brown.
Jesus.
And they would take the wrappings and the powdered bits of mummy, and they would grind it down into a very fine powder and mix it with the oils and stuff, the paint base. And it's a very specific brown. And lots of these master paintings that you've seen, they've got that color in them. And it is a very... and they make a modern color of mummy brown that's the same color that they've color matched with fake pigments. But that was a big... like, they would grind mummies down and make this color paint. And so there's a lot of very specific things and lots of colors that became popular because they were able to be made at that point in time, at that point in history. And so you can see different color patterns and trends and stuff like that as you go through art history. But nowadays, I mean, a lot of stuff that we're doing art-wise is rendered digitally. And you can literally produce millions more colors than the human eye can detect. So if you're using like hexadecimal code when it comes to like the colors that you're producing, you can literally, it's something like 600 million colors or something like that. It's insane how many hexadecimal codes, like colors that you can come up with. And like the human eye can detect like half of that. You know what I mean? And it just sort of gives you this weird nebulous blob of color, and you can pick any of it. It's just this huge...
You're my nebulous blob.
I know. I'm sorry. I should work on that. But just we're spoiled for choice, I think is my point. Like, it used to be that you could have this certain set of things because this is the kind of pigments that we can reproduce. Yeah. But now you're not limited by that. You can literally pick any shade at all whatsoever, period. And a lot of, I mean, and that's in digital media, but you can also get really close to that with fabric dyes nowadays. Synthetic dyes, you can get something almost any color that you want. When I was working at Sesame Street, they have a big Pantone book, and Big Bird is a very specific Pantone color.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Big Bird is a specific...
Can you say what it is, or is it like a trade secret?
I'm not going to say what it is.
Okay.
But I don't know if I can or not.
Like, if you work there, you're allowed to know, right?
Oh, yeah, because I had to color match the shit.
Yeah.
And I also was in charge of, like, we were needing things dyed, and I had to color match the original puppets of the... pajama something or another's. I don't know. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, there's fucking pajama something or another's.
They were pajama pals or something. I don't remember what they're actually called. They're super cute. There were 3 animals. It was like a horse and a turtle and something else. Anyway, they all had pajamas on. It was a really cute puppet show that was on one of the kids' networks. I think it was on Noggin. But I had to color match all of that because we were sending the Pantone colors to another company that was making walk-around suits. So I had to specifically color match all of this stuff. And it gets, like, I was okay at it, but the guy that runs that workshop that I was working at, fucking the most amazing dye person. Like, he could dye anything, whatever specific color you wanted, because he was fucking fabulous. I don't know how he did it. He just a magician, dyeing anything that you wanted, any color that you could imagine. Like, he was so good. But anyway, I was in charge of doing some of those projects of Pantone color matching things, and like they were having a hard time finding a feather supplier for Big Bird because people have stopped eating giant turkeys for Thanksgiving, and so
Who had?
Everybody. Like turkeys
Disagree.
used to be raised up to like 30 pounds and stuff like that, but people are...
Oh, I didn't know they were that fucking big.
People have been buying much smaller turkeys because people don't... there's not a market for giant turkeys anymore.
Yeah, you don't get together with 30 people for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so...
Like every time, the biggest turkey I've ever found at a grocery store is like 18 pounds.
Yeah, so that has made it a lot more difficult to get the feathers for Big Bird because he's feathered completely in turkey feathers, and they have to be those big, beautiful feathers.
Right.
So they were having a really hard time finding at the time. I think they found a new source, but they were having a hard time finding someone who could get the feathers and could dye them the right color because he is a very specific color, and if he's not the color he's supposed to be, the guy that runs the shop just gets pissed about it. So I had to go to a bunch of different feather dyeing shops, which there are quite a few in New York.
Yeah. Well, has
to
that
get
ever
samples.
happened though? Has he ever been not dyed correctly?
Oh no!
You say he gets angry about it.
But that's the thing. They were trying to find a source, and these people had tried several times to get his color, and they hadn't gotten it right yet. So I had to keep picking up packages so they could find the right people to dye Big Bird the right shade of Big Bird.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the topic at hand.
It's
but
fun. We're talking about colors.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm enjoying myself.
We can let this
colors
fucker make
go.
me happy.
Well, talking about colors makes you
Yeah,
happy.
it does. And I'm one of those people that I love colors. I love all sorts of colors, and I like to mix colors. But colors make me I'm very psychologically susceptible to colors. I don't like to go to Target for more than a couple of minutes because all of the red makes me very anxious.
Yeah.
I could never work at a Target. I love the stuff that Target carries. Their t-shirts are awesome. But I really can't stay in Target very long or I get really anxious.
Well, let's talk about let's just fucking keep going because I mean you've closed the computer. You're not doing the story anymore.
No,
we have been
over.
talking for like 20 minutes just talking.
Yeah.
So let's just keep doing it. What about the people that when they hear music they see colors?
I
What the
actually
fuck?
do that.
You can like all the time? Every time? Really?
I have a
Because-
mild form of synesthesia.
Because I oh god, it was a TED Talk or something. It was one of those TED Radio Hour things, I think, where they were talking about people who were working with blind people and trying to explain to them what colors were. Not explain, but to try to help them perceive what colors are. And they do it through tones.
Yeah.
So they would explain what the colors were, and they're exactly what you think they would be. Pink is like a really high-pitched tone. Black is like a really low bass tone. That sort of thing. And apparently that is like a common... It is common across the board that is what those colors sound like.
Yep.
And it's not like we perceive, okay, this is my red, what's your red? No, this is what this color sounds like. It's almost exclusive to, like they're exclusive to each other is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I've had that since I can remember. So, and it's with all music. It's not specific tones. So, like if I hear a fire alarm, I don't get the auras. But it's not like a color in my field of vision. It's sort of a peripheral color for me.
God, that's so weird. Oh,
have
I
I
would love
never
to be able
told
to do
you
that.
about this?
I think you have now that we're talking about it again. I'm pretty sure, but you haven't gone into specifics. You've told me, yes, I hear color.
Yeah. Well, I see color.
See color when I hear music, yeah.
I hear color. And so it's a pretty common form of synesthesia. I know people that have much more serious forms of synesthesia, but for me, I hear color. And so it's more, the more like musical and less lyrical something is, the more color I'll see. So like, I really...
Like if you listen to classical music,
Yeah.
you get a whole bunch of color, right?
Classical music, instrumental stuff,
like jazz, just stuff that's purely instrumental, I see a lot more color than if I'm paying attention to the lyrics instead of the music. But there's always just a little bit of peripheral, and I can completely ignore it if I want to. But concerts are kind of fun for me, especially, and I specifically love.
You should get super stoned to go to a concert. That
Bad
could
choices.
only go well.
But if you ever notice, because you, Mitch, you know, my taste in music tends towards minor key emo shit. For me, I really
Can I guess what that is?
go ahead.
Kind of like a blue-green?
Sort of a blue, like a deeper blue teal kind of
Going
color.
into green.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. See, that's what I was saying about the Ted thing, was, at least for me, that's what I would think. Lighter colors are higher notes and darker colors are lower notes. And what you would think, maybe I just have a very, very, very mild form of it, but everything that I think it would sound like, I kind of get it right when I think about it.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, different bands have different color like palettes. And the ones that I tend to really enjoy are the ones that are in the sort of deep teal, dark purple, jewel tone kind of sounds for me. Because those are my favorite colors, I guess. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if I'm weird or not.
Well, you're definitely weird, but I don't think that relates to this.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the bands that I listen to a lot, I'm really into like the Mountain Goats and the Weaker Thans and the Decemberists. I love going to a Decemberist concert.
Now, I will say this. I've listened to the Decemberists with you. I like it just fine. It's not one of my favorite things. I think a live show of theirs would be incredible.
It is. It's great. And because they're great show folk. You know what I mean? Like they
especially
tell
since
stories and play with the audience and have fun.
Yeah, but especially when you hear color, that music sounds like it would be vibrant.
It is. It's a very vibrant color. And like I love them because they have a real spectrum of color. It's not just the one palette that I like to listen to on the
Oh yeah, they wrote. I mean, they do songs that sound like they're fresh out of the 50s.
Yeah,
and they do songs that sound like they're out of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, and there are some albums of theirs that I like better than others. Their most recent album was not my favorite because it was very synth heavy.
Yeah, it was 80s, early 90s stuff.
And not my favorite, but it was still good. There are a few tracks on that album that I actually absolutely love, but I'm more into the more folk music kind of aspect of it. And for me, like their music can be sort of these jewel tones, dark and brooding, and then like you'll hit the chorus and it's just bright and it's beautiful, and then it goes back down, and you know, like that's.
Let me ask you this: you ever go to a concert or something like a? Jesus.
Fucking A.
That was very loud thunder. It just happened
It's
right
thundering here, and I just got fucking scared.
Well, the thing is, I saw the lightning strike out the window.
I did too.
And I was like, ooh, that was interesting. And then immediately, very loud, and the house shook. But anyway, isn't this interesting? We're talking about music and colors while it's thunderstorming. Oh, this is so wonderful. But I was going to say, have you ever been to a show? Because I've gone to plenty of live concerts, but I don't have synesthesia. Have you ever been to a show where the lighting director is doing the lights exactly the way that you would perceive they should be done, where they are matching what is actually happening? Because great lights can make a fucking show.
It really
as
can.
Well.
And it just really depends on the venue, honestly, more than it does the. Because a lot of the people don't travel with their own lighting person. They have like general light sets and etc.
And they kind of freewheel it.
Yeah, it really depends. The Decemberists really kick ass when it comes to stuff like that because they're more established. They have a little bit more money to work with, and they are generally. But I've never been to one where it was just like spot on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the lights are flashing around, and that's not what I see. I don't see lots of flashes of color. It's almost like a watercolor painting in the peripheral vision. And like I said,
or maybe more waves and flowing and stuff.
It's really difficult to describe, and I didn't know that wasn't normal until I was in college.
Now, you've told me that before, where you thought that's just how everybody perceived things.
I just thought that was how everybody did stuff. So like when I was in high school and stuff like that, if I ever had to do an art piece or something like that, I would think of a song that would make me see the colors that I thought would be good. And like that was an inspiration for me. You know, I love musicals specifically, and I love designing musicals because I know what color something needs to be because of the way it sounds. You know what I mean? Or at least for me. Maybe completely wrong for everybody else, but to me, I know what color things would go with that music. I don't know. It makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
But I was in a psychology course in my freshman year of college, and we had to watch a movie about synesthesia. Like we were talking about different disorders and stuff like that. And like initially it was about, you know, oh, when you say this word, you taste it.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in the theater department who had some other issues, but one of his mental problems.
He was tasting lots of shit.
Yeah, he was a character. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, God.
But he had a couple different types of synesthesia. So he saw auras like I do, but he also had an issue where names tasted like different things. So he wouldn't say certain people's names because they were gross.
Oh, God. That's very upsetting.
Yeah, so he would nickname people a lot because he didn't want to say their names because it was gross. So, like, he would like to say some people's names because they would taste like chocolate or whatever, something that he really enjoyed. And it wasn't whether he liked the people or not. It was just that word tastes bad. You know what I mean?
Gross.
And so I had known that was synesthesia, but I didn't realize what was going on with me was different, you know, and then we started talking about it in class, and I was like, how is that different? Like, what are you talking about? I thought everybody did that. And I got to, like, I stayed behind class and I was talking to my psychology professor, and she's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you have synesthesia. And I said, what the fuck are you talking about? No one's ever said that I had a problem. Or she's like, yeah, a lot of people don't understand that it's different. You know what I mean? Some people with synesthesia have like a number line. So they can tell,
a number line.
like they can literally visualize a number line, like out spatially in front of them, and like they can tell you what day of the week any mathematical date is on. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
they
I've
have
heard of
weird
people
shit like that.
There was a person who did that on some show that I saw a long time ago. Oh, it was Conan. It was on Conan, and he would tell you exactly what game shows were played on whatever date you gave him. What game shows aired on what network in like 1973. You could just say a date, and he would say exactly the game shows that aired that day because he knew.
And then there's like
or the people who count up all the letters you say in each sentence. You know, that sort of thing.
There's a girl that I used to work with in Montgomery, and she had a form of synesthesia where words had genders. So for her, she never knew that it was weird or whatever, but like numbers specifically each had a gender. And some of them were a gender, but she knew like if it was a girl or a boy, and it was always the same. And it has been since she was a little kid.
What does that mean though?
I don't know.
I don't understand that part.
It doesn't mean anything, but to her, they've got a gender. It's just a weird thing that people's brains do sometimes.
Like, I think 13 is a lady. Does that make sense? You know, maybe it is. Let's call her.
I was just
not 13. Let's call the person you know.
I don't have her number, but she's on my friend on Facebook. We can ask her. But yeah, like numbers, I think, and she said days of the week had genders and stuff like that. But but that's a pretty common form of it as well. Like I said, some people can taste words. Some people, words have colors. So when you say the word cantaloupe, it might be bright green for you, or it might be,
green and orange, the color of a cantaloupe.
But
seriously,
usually, but that's what I'm saying. Usually it has absolutely nothing to do with what it is. So like the guy that words tasted for him that I talked to, he could say the word chocolate and it doesn't taste like chocolate. You know what I mean? Like it tastes like something completely different. The
word does not mean anything. It's just how it tastes.
It's the way you say it or the sound of it or whatever has nothing to do with the actual word.
It triggers
itself.
something in his brain.
Exactly.
That
it's
tastes
completely
like
different.
Whatever.
So like I was
Does
like,
every word have a taste?
Huh?
Does every single word have a taste?
Yeah.
every word, no matter what that he says,
For him,
does something
it
in
did.
his brain that's bitter or sweet or sour.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because he
that's
would
so
never
weird.
call me Leah. He would call me Kraft because Kraft tasted better than Leah did.
Oh God, what did they taste like? Did you ever know?
I'm sure he told me, but I didn't remember. But he'd only ever refer to me as Kraft, and he would refer to other people as different things because he didn't want to taste whatever. And I was like, "So do you hate me because I taste bad? What is that about?" And he's like, "No, it has absolutely nothing to do whether
Yeah, it's
I
not your
like the
fault.
person or I don't like the person. Literally, it just tastes bad."
God, that's so weird. I will say this, what you're saying about, you know, what you just said with the word cantaloupe, I am now realizing that I kind of do that. I kind of at least associate colors with certain things. But I feel like I associate them with the object and not necessarily the words. Because, like,
And I mean, that's common. Everybody
Yeah.
does that.
I
You
don't
can't-
know. I really don't.
But I mean, like, if you say, like, apple, you're probably going to think of a red apple. You know what I mean?
I immediately went green, but yeah.
Well, I mean, one or the other, really.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? If you say banana, you're thinking of the color yellow.
Actually, I think of red because of Mitch Hedberg. Where the fuck did you get that banana at? I'm serious. That's what happened.
Okay,
You said
so for
banana, I went
normal
red.
fucking human beings.
I'm sorry.
But anyway, so that is my personal experience with synesthesia.
God. Man, this was fun. I think we want to release this overall. I think we should.
Do you want to release it as a bonus? Come subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah, we're going to do it to Patreon and then give it like a week. And then we'll
Okay.
put it out, I think.
All right, that's fine.
I think we should do that because this was incredible.
I don't know. I had a really good time. I
Yeah.
should probably mention the articles that I got a lot of this information from.
Oh, yeah,
so,
since it's going out.
yeah,
and
since it's
not
going
Patreon.
out. There is a website called. Well, fuck. Let me look it up.
All right, we'll take a little break and we'll be right back. And we have returned. Leah said that she's ready.
Figured it out.
Okay.
I had it written down. I just had closed the computer. But these articles that I got them from are from the drweightsin.com, which it was a psychologist that was writing that article. The article's called The Fascinating History of the Color Blue. Then there is an I Fucking Love Science article called When Did Humans Start to See the Color Blue? And then I first found the idea that I didn't know that humans didn't see blue until, that came from a website called ancientorigins.net. And if you ever want to look at just weird esoteric strangeness, it's a great place to start. Anyway, but those are the three sources that I generally pulled a lot of this information in from, and then also just a lot of the random textbooks that I've read over the course of my life, because you can obviously tell I've been talking about this shit for an hour and a half, and I could keep going,
It's so interesting. It really is.
It's really neat, or at least to me it's neat. Maybe I'm wrong. There's
I think
also
it's neat.
there's a Vsauce YouTube video about it.
Really?
That I remember from years ago that was really interesting about this type of phenomenon. I think I keep seeing, I have not listened to it, but I believe Radio Lab, the NPR show, also did a big long episode on it, and I really want to go find it and listen to it because apparently it's really good. But I've seen it referenced in a couple of articles about this topic. And so if you're really interested in that, I've been told, or I've read that that's a really good episode about this topic. So maybe
I'm
check
probably
them
gonna watch
out,
that.
because I want to go find it.
Yeah.
It's a podcast. It's the Radio Lab NPR
Oh, okay. Listen to it,
podcast.
whatever.
But I really think I want to go find that because I'm interested. But yeah, so that's just sort of where a lot of this information came from, in case you want to go find it yourself, because I love it. And anyway, I hope you do too, ?
Well, I fucking really enjoyed this.
Yeah, good.
I am so happy that we talked about the color theory.
Yeah,
Aren't you?
definitely. And that's not like all of color theory. Clearly there's all sorts of shit about like complementary colors and clashing colors and color wheel positions and
Oh, there's
and triads and quads and
There's
all
more to get into?
Baby doll, you could spend lots of money taking lots of classes about color theory. This isn't.
Let's get into it. Keep going. We're only an hour and a half in.
No.
Oh, that'll be next month.
Yeah. For the history of green.
Yeah. Oh, God, we should totally do that Patreon exclusive series. The history of each individual color. Blue will be the shortest.
No,
obviously.
Blue is really one of the most interesting because it is one of the latest colors that ever gets added linguistically.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this whole story interesting, is because a lot of cultures don't recognize it as a color. You know what I mean? Or believe that green and blue are the same color, and they all, are different shades. And so it always makes me go back to, like, what if Newton decided he needed 10 colors and he had his friends draw lines separating 10 different colors?
It's completely arbitrary.
It is. It's 100% arbitrary, because as a kid, when we did the whole Roy G. Biv thing, I was like, what the fuck is indigo? That's clearly blue.
Yeah.
To me, in my mind, as a little kid, indigo was just dark
light.
blue.
It's just light purple.
It's
isn't
dark
it?
blue.
Or darker purple, I guess.
I mean, it's in that in between color, you know. And I was like, that's clearly still blue for me. In my mind, as a child, I was like, that's just it's blue. You know what I mean? What are you talking about? And so I feel like there could be a bunch of different divisions, and there are. You know what I mean? One of the things that we had to do when I was a student in the art class, it was a 2D design class, and we were studying color theory before we moved on. This is one of the first things that we had to do, was learning to mix our paints and colors and stuff like that. So we had to make a color wheel. So we had to get fucking protractor out a compass, not a protractor, excuse me. We got our compasses out, we made circles, we made lines. It was all very mathematical, and we had to we used all the primary colors. So we had a red, a blue, a yellow, and then a white and a black. And we had to make a full color wheel, like a full spectrum wheel. And you could keep going out as far as you wanted to with that. But, and we were graded on how well we could detect and mix these colors to make them different. You know what I mean? And it was... this teacher also was very serious about neatness, so using straight edges and stuff to paint with was also a thing. But the whole exercise was learning how colors go together and how you can adjust it with different amounts of pigment, and how seamlessly can you blend these colors depending on how, and there were some students that did it so well that it was just flawless. You know what I mean? It was a beautiful mixture, and others of us were not as good at it because we couldn't detect as many different subtle differences in shade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just a really interesting way to see how other people see the same colors as you, just seeing all of these different, and I'm going to keep talking about this, aren't I? You can edit out a lot of this shit if you want to.
No, just keep going.
But I also really enjoy the differences between how certain groups of people approach the same topic. You know what I mean? So when I was a theater major, and I was in art classes because, I was in design classes, but I was not an art major, and I was taking these art classes. So a lot of the art students, well, didn't like me because I wasn't an art student, but they all approached the different assignments that we had from a very similar perspective, right? Because they had all had previous education in art, you know what I mean? And I had never taken an art class, like with a capital A. I was always in band and in theater classes and that kind of stuff. So my perspective on these different things is completely different. I was coming out of it as someone who sews and crafts and that kind of thing. So when we had to draw a still life in art, drawing 101, everybody was on drawing the exact same thing. You could pick whatever you wanted to draw out of it, but everybody was drawing the same still life. And of course there were different perspectives because everybody had their own one spot that they were drawing from. But like this whole still life was done in white and black charcoal. That was the only two colors you had. You picked whatever. And so the piece that I did from this class is still framed in my dad's house, but it's really pretty. It was
very proud of myself. But I drew the mannequin that was in there draped in this fabric, and it's beautifully rendered, if I do say so myself. I was very happy with it. But everybody else was drawing other things, and everybody else's looked pretty much the same. And mine focuses on the figure with all the fabric. And that's because that's what I'm used to drawing. That's what I notice first, is the person with the fabric on it, because that's literally what I was going to school for, was learning to draw, and design people with fabric on them. And so, like I said, my art projects always turned out dramatically different from the rest of the class. And I always stuck out like a fucking sore thumb. And I followed all of the rules. I did exactly what I was supposed to be doing. But like mine always turned out different from everybody else's. And some professors loved that. And some professors, like my drawing teacher, hated it.
Why'd she hate it? Or he, I guess.
It was a she.
Okay.
She was just a snotty bitch anyway. I have mentioned that professor previously. She was the 8 o'clock professor with the high heels. Yeah. She did not like me at all. But there was another professor that did a 2D design class that is the one who did the color wheel with. And I did much better in her class. And she liked that I was weird and different. And I think we had similar styles of like weirdness. So like I like to embroider on the paper that they gave us, and I like to add...
You can embroider paper?
Yeah, I did. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
I don't know if you're supposed to, but it was a thick paper, but I punched all of the holes, and I did embroidery. That piece is also in my dad's house. It's really pretty, but she actually had us do a project that was really similar to the synesthesia thing. So she said, I want you to pick a song that means something to you, something that is a personal thing for you. And I picked the song Shoots Too Narrow by the Shins. And I did this assemblage kind of thing where I drew, it was supposed to be like a self-portrait of sorts. So I did a lady's head with, I made that piece of it, and I took magazines and I punched out a bunch of skin tone pieces with a hole punch, and I glued individually and made like a mosaic of her face, and then I quilled all of the hair, and then I embroidered her pupil, and then all of the background was a bunch of waves rolling, but I had cut everything out of magazine pieces and decoupaged over it, and then I embroidered lots of like symbols in the background and stuff like that. And so yeah, she got me a lot more than most of the other people did. My printmaking teacher was really awesome. But yeah, for the most part, my stuff did not turn out the same way. And I don't know if that's just because I'm weird, or if
It's definitely because you're weird.
have synesthesia or what. But yeah, going to art school.
Well, you didn't go to art school.
No, I did not go to art school. I had some dabbling in art school because of the major that I picked in regular school. But yeah, I am an art history minor though, so there you go.
Art history doesn't mean shit though.
It does though. That shit, learning names and dates of paintings and all that. Ugh.
Yeah, fuck that nonsense.
But my art history professor she told a fabulous story. She could have a podcast just telling art history stuff, and I would listen to that shit.
She should do awesome. It. Oh God, maybe you could do that. Take that idea and run with it.
I'm sure someone else has already done that and done it much better than I ever could. But
I was going to say, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You can do it better, but then you went and ruined it. So.
I'm sorry, but anyway. So yeah.
Oh, well, I think that, that's probably enough. We've been doing this for almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, you need to probably cut off a good 40 minutes of this.
No, I'm fine with it. I loved it. And I'm going to make everybody else love it. God damn it.
Awesome. Well,
they're going to love it.
Okay.
For real, though, I think that we might need to release this,
to everybody.
Effectively, I guess, is the word. But the patrons can have it for a week or so beforehand. But,
cool.
I fucking loved this. This was so much fun. Did you have a good time?
I did, obviously. Like, I obsess about weird little minutia, and I like it when other people enjoy my weirdness. So, I hope everybody does, and if you don't, please don't tell me about it because it's going to make me feel bad.
That's just too bad because y'all are getting it anyway.
Yeah.
So, oh man, well this was great fun, and thank you to all you patrons, and I guess that we will have to see you next month.
All right. Bye, y'all.